provide you essentially with the resources to establish your institution's baseline data. Today, you heard Lynn Morgan, I don't know if anyone counted how many times she said data, but you also heard David Morgan say data. So data. And so what we have been working on within the Adult Learning Consortium is how do we measure our progress or our improvement of these services, both in terms of the adult perception as well as the actuality of these services to our adult students. And so we, within the Adult Learning Consortium, have done a good bit on the data collection task force. And when we had conference calls with the new institutions, we reassured the new institutions that as much as possible, we had streamlined the data collection process so that anything that is in Banner, we can draw. You don't have to do anything. And Rebecca Jean-Baptiste has gotten access to be able to cut, draw, pull, slice, dice, spindle, and mutilate those data so that if your institution already has that information in Banner, you're done for that. But we also realize that many of the things that are in Banner are very important, but some things are not in Banner. Those questions of student services, for example, aren't there? And so Cherie and Candy were on the data collection task force where we tried to say, okay, these are the things that are not in Banner. How do we go about creating a web form, which we promise you we will ask you to complete once a year, that not only captures important information, but it gives you the information, the data, in a way that you can look back at your ALC data and say, oh, ALC was our baseline. How are we doing against the ALC? So I asked Cherie and Candy, or how are we doing in general? And I asked Cherie and Candy and Rebecca to listen to Judy's presentation so that we can make sure anything we can get from Banner is taken from there. But these other questions of services to students, we're going to have to create from a web form. And so making sure the web form captures it all. So as you were listening to Judy's presentation, do you have any questions about how that baseline, the ALFE data is reported, and or how, because both of your institutions have already administered the ALFE, how you might get other data to measure progress that we can use among us?
Well, for us at AMC, I'm with Atlanta Metropolitan College. On the ALFE, we identified a cohort group and attached it to the student, and that way you could follow. Also on the degree works implementation, and so I've added that to the list if you have degree works whenever the advisor comes in, so it kind of pings them to say this is an adult learner, and we're creating questionnaires to ask to kind of keep them on track through the notes section of degree works in order that they answer. Kind of is another way of saying we're doing FT, first time, full time. But it lets the advisor know this is an adult learner, there may be different questions and they have different questions, and we're coming up with that format. But currently on the data side, we only did the cohort ID way of doing on the cohort for the first student population that answered the questions. And we went back to the executive committee to talk to, through ADM, to say we need a code. Is there some way we can get a code? So my understanding from the ADM redesign team, there's supposed to be a code coming so that we can track it easier in Banner. We also learned that the information...
It being those students who completed the...
No, not just them. In the future, it would be any adult learner based upon the definition of 25, and there was been lots of discussion on based upon what the definition of adult learner is, and basically trying to say it's a 25-year or older student. Then there was discussion points of that you have your freshman who has stopped out, who may have less than 29 hours or not a transfer. So that was also being looked at and assessed with the code. So right now on that piece, we're kind of in limbo. We know a lot of different institutions, Valdosta being one, puts a different code in, then crosswalks it so to go to ADM. And I know other schools, I think Southern Poly said that they do that as well. But I didn't want to have to create a whole code and then crosswalk it. So I would rather from a system level that they decided that yes, it was something, it was a need and value for institutional research. We also discovered on the Georgia College 411 download that the veterans information is captured there, but it goes nowhere. So I've asked a couple of people, registrars around, that I noticed some new coding on the attribute side of the students, and I assume, because I haven't seen any data coming down, we suddenly got all this information about dependents and different types. You have Navy, Army, and it just breaks, it's like 30 new attributes out of there. Suddenly came around in January. And so I think that what they're trying to do is fix that side so that it had nowhere to feed into, that now it will have a way to feed in so that we can actually begin tracking, and that helps out our Veterans Affairs and our financial aid, because then that way they'll know whether they're, and Michelle help me on this, is 30, what was that, for the dependents? Yeah, the chapters, all the different chapters. And so that was another thing, because we were missing out on so many of these students that were military, either dependents or military, and because it never came through. And so unless they went through VA, and then our Veterans Affairs would have to go and ping it against there, or not knowing which type, it was always like you were chasing your tail. So at this point, a lot of us have been doing individual stuff, but we've been trying to bring it together as one. From a multitude of different things that I saw that we could actually do is on the, I like the orientation thing for just military. And I know we have online orientations, different schools who do that, but I don't think that really helps out on the military side for somebody who has war, anxiety, and how to get that, because I think a lot of times they wander around campus before they really know what they need to do, or they go back to their veterans and they get routed around. That's one thing. But Cherie had showed us where they had been capturing it for a while.
For veterans?
For veterans.
But we're actually doing it for Valley State University for veteran students or dependents. We actually code them on our general student form, and we track them in Banner based upon the chapter. We code all those students in Banner along with their file number. But also for adult learners, what we are doing, we do different things on our campuses that are different, but we have asked for a standard code in the university system, for the university system, that will make things easier. Through our distance ed office, we will actually have a major code that is for a fully online student, and most of our fully online students are adult learners. And we just doing a lot of different things at Fort Valley, especially with our veteran affairs, but we are asking for the system office to come up with standard codes that we can all capture this information and report it at one way.
And just basically identifying that, instead of the admissions office having to identify, oh, you're over 25, you meet this criteria, going ahead and kind of when it downloads in, that it will go ahead and populate that cohort group or the attribute code, however the system wants to do it. But it got to a point where the data that the ALC needed, it was harder to capture because we were doing a multitude of different things when we started talking about it. So the goal was to get all on the same board, but it's a lot easier instead of us trying to agree together. If they say it's got to be in the data element dictionary or you're not going to be able to submit, that works a lot quicker.
And I was just going to add from definitely at the system office, we are experiencing these issues that each institution have their own coding, and I think everybody's probably in agreement that we need to have this common system-wide standard in coding instead of having everybody making up their own, from their own customization of Banner. We have had issues in being able to define the military population in our data, and there hasn't been something that's very specific. While there are some categories where they can provide that information in Banner, it's not consistently applied among the institutions, and it's not something that is required. So therefore, you might have it in some instance and you might not, and there are all the different type of chapters, as you hear Kenny and Cherie just spoke about. The GSFC, we believe, is obtaining data about military from the application side. However, from our conversation with Georgia Strand Finance, the applications are differ depending on the institutional application. So a particular institution may collect information, may ask about military, and some may not. So again, we have an issue with consistency among those different ways where we can capture that information. But I want to say that I think right now is definitely a great time to be having those discussions, because with everything that we have going on, we've raced to the top, and the change with the longitudinal data system changes that's going on with Complete College America. A lot of work is being done around data and ensuring that the system is being designed in such a way to ensure consistency and to provide report that can answer the questions that all are the different programs that we are working on. In the adult population, we may get some specific answer from that from the college completion Georgia metrics that's coming about, because they have to report it by specific population, and some of those population may be broken down by age group. So again, the good news is, because of all the work we have going on and the pain we've been feeling, and there are some other programs going on that may put some pressure on getting some of those changes that we need. So, yeah.
You may have thought, oh, Judy talked about adults being 25 and over. How does the Adult Learning Consortium define adults? And I'm smiling at Dawn Ramsey from Southern College. When we're looking at comparing apples to apples, i.e. your institution wants to look at how you're doing with the adult population and use your ALC data as your baseline, ALC uses 25 and over. You know, you can extract that. That's correct, isn't it?
If you decide to do that. Yes, and we usually recommend that because that's the easiest thing to do.
Well, whatever you define when you did that needs to be what you continue
Yes.
to use to compare.
Yes.
However, the Adult Learning Consortium essentially defines adults as what they're not. Adults are not first-time, full-time freshmen who graduated from high school within the past 12 months. Right?
And has
So-
no college credit.
Pardon?
And has no college credit.
And has no college, for like 18 years, something like that. But, so for purposes of data collection, what we can get from Banner is date of birth. What we can get from Banner is date of high school graduation. What we can get from Banner are data about numbers of college credits that they're bringing with them. We're not going to ask you for that, but for our measuring, how are we doing? Are we getting better at serving adults? We want to ask some questions about this career services kind of thing. That's not in there. About services to students with disabilities. That's not in there. So those kinds of things we're going to use as simple a web form as we can, but we wanted you to know we're aligning the web form with these categories, with these 8 principles. The partnership isn't going to be one of them, but with the ALC principles as we move forward so that we can all look at the baseline data, at least in conceptual terms, as being those same concepts. That's what we talked about. And who fills out the web form? We have actually determined that the PI would receive it, and you would determine where within your institution it would be completed. So it may be that it would go to multiple people to assure the accuracy of your library hours, your testing, hours, your career counseling hours, but that you would then the PI would own that and submit it as a single point of submission. Does that make sense? Questions from the audience about, Candy, I have a question.
Hey, Connie.
Hey, Candy, how are you?
Good.
So do you have I don't need that, honey. Do you have a code that you put in Banner for your adult learner?
I did.
So you just define at your institution what an adult learner, the A is.
All why I shook the fence downtown, saying, I need a code, I need a code, I need a code. Yes, pretty much. Because until they give,
Report commonly to ADM, we all have to decide what the definition within the institution, all of us, are going to be as an adult learner, if we're going to track data. Correct? The data element dictionary, Susan Campbell Lunsberry's shop, is in discussion with us, in conversation with us, and system will tell us what an adult is.
When will we know?
Yeah, hurry up.
that is going on actually right now, I believe, because they're starting the rebuild now. Training is getting ready to come up, so I know they've added some new codes. I have not looked at it. Have you looked at it, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, I know we can track institutionally, but.
No, but they were supposed to be coming up with one for overall, because that was the biggest question. I mean, we can all make codes all day long and track it and then have to articulate it. It goes back to on your knowing about learning and service. Learning and service, how are you going to track that on your campus? If you do not create a way, I mean, the only reason why I'm saying this as a registrar is I got my institutional research person came to me and said, I want permission to take this information out and put it in this other database so that we can begin tracking it. And then you're going to have all these databases around your campus. So basically, we need to figure out a way to use Banner in order to do it. Degree Works, since we're using GA Tracks, it has the Notepad capabilities on it in order for you to start being able to give authority to different people, such as in your tutoring area, in your disabilities area, in order to write down information that you can pull and submit. Sorry.
You can see the level of passion and the level of knowledge about what we need to do, and that has absolutely been feeding the data, the construction and the development of this online learning. What I want your takeaway to be is that we have this kind of passion and knowledge here in terms of what we don't need to collect, because we already have it, and Rebecca can pull it. We're in conversation kind of with the people who are defining the data element dictionary. John Sizemore has joined us, he's in the room, he's like, yes, we need that in the DMD, yes, DED or whatever it's called. If your institution wants to be reassured of it, I want to reassure you that we are in regular communication with CAEL regarding the ALC toolkit, so we know the baseline. You know the baseline. We are trying our very best to have a tool that will give us, how are we doing? Data, data, data. You hear it over and over again. We're trying to say, we're going to solve that part of the data collection process for you as regards adults, because we're going to give a simple website that will go to the principal investigator on the campus, and we will be able to say, measured against your original data, how are you doing? That's what I want your takeaways. So those arguments about, yes, we realize we all go to different. And the more we sit and talk with each other, the more deeply confused we become, or at a much higher level.
I was just going to add just kind of a preview or round tables. One of them is about data for the grant. And we've discussed this, I think, with each individuals as we've had the conference calls. But to kind of continue the conversations that we're having right now, our data collection for the grant will contain 3 different sections. One is the banner data that we've discussed. The second one is the web form, and the one that we've not spoken about right here is one that the institutions that have been part of the consortium are familiar with. That's the quarterly report that's done at the time of the executive committee meetings. So again, these are the three main areas you will be reporting information to us, and you can see that the larger part of it, the banner, will be done indirectly, and that is not something that we want to burden you with, because we can get access to that information. However, the web form that, as Mary Ellen discussed, will be done once a year. That's going to be very important to get some organizational and student services information. And of course, the quarterly reports that are focused around the four main areas that you've been reporting on already, which includes ALFI, PLA, program integration, and project, sorry, that's escaping me right now. Project Focus, thank you, Trish, will be what we will be continuing to monitor to ensure the performance of your project. So those are the areas where we want to focus your attention in ensuring that everything that's done from the ALFI survey are continuing to show the progress that's going on at your institutions for adult learners. So again, a little preview of our next discussion on the data roundtable.
I would just like to ask, are there any institutions here that have used the ALFI or done the ALFI surveys that have questions about some of the results that you may have obtained or what you do next? Anybody? Well, you know how to get in touch with me, so please do. And I'll get up your data because we have copies of it all, and we can talk about the survey. And that's an offer that goes to any of the rest of you who may have the data and not know what to do with it, be overwhelmed by it. I also want to say that CAEL will be having 3 webinars. First one is in March, March 14th, next April and May. They are free to CAEL members. They will be in the afternoon for 1 hour, and we will have people who have used the ALFI data talk about what they have done with it, and each time will focus on 3 of the 9 principles. The first session, as I said, is March 14th. It's going to be started by Michael Krause, who is in the system office of KCTCS, who's going to talk about why institutions, 2-year institutions in Kentucky wanted to use ALFI, what they got out of it, and then we will have 2 people from institutions that have also used ALFI talk about what their individual institutions have done. And I want to tell you that it's on the CAEL website. As a member, the University System of Georgia is a member, and it's free to members. So feel invited to March 14th. Just check it out. And thank you once again for letting me talk to you about ALFI. And please do get in touch with me if you have questions.